It's Monday night, and you know what that means. The Jersey First Television Network proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am New Jersey's premier and now 10-time award-winning journalist, top Latino, as voted on by the Latino Spirit Online magazine, along with the United States Latino Affairs Initiative. And without a doubt, I'll continue to be the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media, because my level of honesty, ladies and gentlemen, now more than ever, is truly necessary in this era of journalistic deception. That's right, folks. It's me, the generational talent in New Jersey media, of course, the people's choice and the people's voice. And last but not least, of course, the most handsome face that runs the place. It's me, Fernando, your Uribe. Happy December, everyone. My goodness, how 2024 has flown by. I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so right now on Facebook Live via StreamYard. Of course, folks, whether you're checking us out on YouTube, also on all of our social media platforms, and if you haven't done so yet, please take a moment to like us on Facebook. Of course, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And for all you YouTube subscribers, I'm sure you're always on YouTube for something. You're watching podcasts just like this one, maybe watching tutorials about makeup, where the best specials are during Cyber Monday. Wherever it is, folks, you're always on YouTube for something. Just real quick, click the subscribe button, like, comment, and share all the great stuff we put out on Jersey First TV. And of course, where you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First and take us with you, whether you're doing errands, walking the dog, even in this brisk weather, or maybe just doing some early Christmas shopping. Folks, again, we appreciate you supporting the Jersey First Television Network. And ladies and gentlemen, I cannot say enough what a privilege it is to be on the dream team of Garden State Media. That's right, folks. It is Jersey First TV. Of course, brand new episodes of the Nader Narrative premiere every Thursday, hosted by the amazing Elizabeth Nader. Brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap with AJ Malillo and Stephen Rumbolo also premiere every Thursday. And of course, every Monday night, check your local listings. Of course, brand new episodes of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe premiere every Monday night right here on the Jersey First Television Network. Folks, you want to stick around for final thoughts? It's a good one. Folks, I have a lot to say about the usual Trump derangement syndrome people in New Jersey media, activism, academia, and more. And of course, specifically, as you can see there, folks, it never gets old to sort of poke fun at a lot of these, insufferable, cat ladies, feminists, social justice clowns, woke fools, climate hysterics, you name it, folks. There's never enough to go around when it comes to sort of, dissing these idiots here in the state of New Jersey. Of course, as you can see there, they include a very, very interesting list of people: Antoinette Miles, Tom Moran, Alan Steinberg, Maria Rodriguez-Gregg, Charles Stile, Laura Bustamante, Amy Torres, Micah Rasmussen, certainly Bob Medina, Sarah Clanany as well. And of course, whether it be Maxie himself from Insider NJ, Hetty Rosenstein, Jay Lassiter, Miss Photogenic herself, Lauren Albrecht, of course, Bob Hennelly, Ron Zellinger, and many, many more folks. Again, this election cycle has been very entertaining. It's been very, very gratifying for me. But I want to talk about two specific people that, quite frankly, exhibit Trump derangement syndrome every single day. And of course, we start off with Uncle David Cruz with NJ Spotlight News. We'll talk about him a little bit. And certainly also we'll be talking about, as we all know, Ravi Bala, the mayor of Hoboken, folks, who, again, his latest antics in the Moscow city kind of make you wonder if he's fit for office beyond 2025. More on them later. Folks, you don't want to miss final thoughts in just a little bit. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot say enough. Once again, the streak continues in the month of November. Over 72,000 organic views. Folks, are you surprised? I mean, is it at this point, is it just elementary that this show's always going to get good traffic because it's just a great show? Unlike these little Mickey Mouse journalists, folks in the establishment media who wouldn't know traffic unless they walked on Route 440 or Route 35 off the Parkway. Yeah, folks, here on this show, it's real traffic because it's real talk. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in Final Thoughts. Folks, again, if you're just joining us right now, it's 5 after 6 here on the East Coast. Once again, like, comment, and share tonight's episode as we are live here from the Jersey First Television Studios here. And folks, I can't say enough, whenever I get to talk to real journalists, not the establishment media who, let's be honest, folks, blatantly lie to you every single day, whether it's Insider NJ, whether it's the Bergen Record, whether it's the Jersey Journal, good riddance to them on February the 1st, or the Star Ledger, good riddance to them on February 1st. Folks, now more than ever, it's important for podcasts, for local journalism, for citizen journalism to start thriving, because we're the ones bringing you the truth, bringing you the facts, and bringing you information that the establishment media isn't doing that. Let me tell you about a guy that caught my eye over the summer. Folks, he is the editor of the Edison Reporter. Again, you can check out the great news that they publish every single day by going to edisonreporter.com. Folks, it's their editor-in-chief, the great Keith Hahn, joins us live right now on Real Talk. Keith, how are you?
Hey, how you doing, Fernando? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I appreciate that, man. How was your Thanksgiving, by the way?
It was very good. Spent it with family, a lot of family. Kids had a good time. Always happy to see their grandparents. So no complaints whatsoever.
Happy to hear that, man. Hey, listen, some food, watch the NFL. You know, I know we talked before we went on the broadcast. Obviously, as a Cowboys fan, it's always good to see the Cowboys get a W on Thanksgiving. Maybe not so much, I think, in the Hahn household, right? But definitely
fans. But hey, it is what it is.
It's with the amount of time that we put into work, man, because we're real journalists. We're actually working. You know, we're putting 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Unlike, you know, there are some journalists in establishment media, Keith, who don't work 60 hours in a month, for God's sakes, but not you. Folks, again, check out edisonreporter.com. Outstanding journalism there in Middlesex County. So, Keith, you know, as we get started here, I think what many of my audience are curious about is, what was the epiphany? What prompted the creation of the Edison Reporter?
So it's really just the void in local news. The Star Ledger probably, or the NJ Advanced Media, hasn't done an article in Edison in probably 4 or 5 years. Edison's the 6th biggest municipality in the state. It's relevant on just about all issues, but there's no more local news media. We have the Home News Tribune, which is on life support, and there's really a void in local news. If you go back less than 10 years ago, in a town the size of Edison, 32 square miles, 110,000 people, you used to have 3, 4, 5 journalists at every single council meeting. And it's really the only thing that holds the local elected officials accountable.
When we think about accountability, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, because to your point, yes, I would argue that the Star Ledger, you know, NJ.com, the Bergen Record, NorthJersey.com, Insider NJ. I mean, again, these are supposed to be, you know, establishment news sites, just like NJ Spotlight News. And it just seems, though, Keith, that they're more concerned with propaganda and pronouns than they are about real issues, like, let's say, you know, God forbid, property taxes in New Jersey, the highest in the country, public safety, right? We're seeing the damage and the harm by irresponsible bail reform and cash bail. We're seeing it in New Jersey. And it's astounding to me that more and more sites aren't surfacing like yours. I mean, to your point, yes, we see the tap intos and the patches, you know, nearby in New Brunswick. Shout out to my fellow Rutgers alumnus, Charlie Cradaville with New Brunswick Today. I mean, I look at you guys collectively as what I would say is the future of journalism in New Jersey, because you're covering the local stories that I think really matter at the end of the day.
So the local stories are really necessary, but you look at the mainstream media, the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, sites like that, it's really about monetization. And when you look at their advertisers and you look at who's pushing the narrative on local stories, it's very easy to see why they are or aren't covering certain issues. You know, for an independent like myself, you know, it's getting to that point where you can monetize it to afford all the costs and expenses that go in with running a news site like this, you know, and that's something we're still trying to figure out locally. You know, I know Charlie's been working on it for years.
No, listen, he certainly has. Again, I know that you just started this in February of last year, like you just mentioned, but Keith, let's sort of delve into sort of the bread and butter of it. I mean, at the end of the day, listen, some news sites have a slant. I think, as we all know, the liberal establishment media on a national level, I think we all know where they lean. Obviously, there's a handful of news sites like Fox News, Newsmax, America First, you know, other news sites that obviously are in competition with the establishment media. And I think we see it here in New Jersey. Some of the sites I just mentioned, I mean, again, they're no longer, I think, news sites. I think they've become propaganda tools for one political party or one ideology. And I can tell you right now, for someone like me who is a dedicated conservative and very open about that, I don't think establishment media in New Jersey caters to even independents for that matter.
No, I agree with you. And I'm a retired cop. I retired after 25 and a half years as a detective in Edison. And I just look at the news the same way I did police work. The facts will dictate. You can't go into it with a preconceived notion of what the story is going to be or what the news is. The facts dictate, and you have to be fair.
And I appreciate your service, obviously, working in law enforcement, Keith, for sure. Folks, it's 6:11 here on the East Coast. If you just joined us live, hey, takes 5 seconds, actually. Like, comment, and share tonight's episode of Real Talk with the distinguished editor-in-chief of the Edison Reporter, Keith Hahn. Join us live right now here on the Jersey First Television Network. Keith, let's get to some local stories here. I know that you've been reporting on them. And first and foremost, something that really doesn't sit well with me, and I'm kind of curious as to what the feedback's been within the city of Edison. But the idea that you can't have an American flag or have a copy of our most glorious document, right? Arguably the greatest living document in human history, the United States Constitution. The idea that some on the city council in Edison feel that it's inappropriate to have that as a member of the general public, let's say during the public minutes portion when residents can go up to the podium and speak. I'll be honest with you. I think it's downright reprehensible, disgraceful, and disgusting.
So there's been a lot of pushback on this. What transpired is the town council passed an ordinance that prohibits a resident from very politely and respectfully addressing the council. They can't hold an American flag or a copy of the U.S. Constitution. They consider that a prop. They forfeit your time, and they have the police remove you from a meeting. The last meeting, there was a resident from town. He was holding a copy of the Constitution while he was speaking. The police came up and removed him from the meeting. There's been a lot of feedback from veterans groups, civil liberty groups. It's really causing a lot of backlash. The interesting thing is, though, that the local mayor, Mayor Sam Joshi, he signed the other ordinances that limited talking time and everything. He has not signed that ordinance that passed yet. So we don't know if he's going to veto it or he's getting so much pushback. He's having second thoughts and he's going to reconsider. But he signed the other bills or ordinances that were passed that night. He did not sign that one.
Keith, it makes you wonder, though. I mean, what's been the rationalization or the justification for some of these council members to think that this is a good idea?
None of them will talk publicly on it. It was really about, they started off, they wanted to limit speech. They didn't like people coming to the meeting and being critical of the administration, the mayor, and themselves. And it kind of evolved to this point. And, I think they made the fatal mistake where they did not want to admit they made a mistake. They didn't want to backpedal, and they didn't want to change their mind. Once they committed to it, they dug in, and they were going to jam it through because they had the votes, and they didn't care, what the public thought or what local news thought or anything like that.
I have to tell you, I think it's downright disgraceful on behalf of those council members. I think it's terrible. I think it sets a bad message and a bad precedent. And, again, I think what we learned during this election cycle, Keith, is that regular everyday Americans got tired of all the woke nonsense. And I'll sort of be bold. It's my show. I can say this. They got tired of all the woke bullshit. They just did. And I think it came back to haunt Democrats at a national level, obviously in a lot of statewide races. And it's interesting because, sort of keeping it local in Edison, the mayor himself, who's a proud Democrat, he got himself into some hot water, if you all remember. I think it was earlier this year or maybe last year when we started seeing a bunch of all these illegals getting, shipped up here to New York and New Jersey. Apparently, Edison was a destination for a lot of these illegals to be bussed into. And it seemed like the mayor wasn't sort of following the Democrat Party playbook when it came to the way that, some of his fellow Democrats like to coddle illegals in New Jersey.
No, so after those buses were coming in for a few months, and then when people started to get wind of it, he took the position of, he almost sounded like President Trump. He's ordered the police chief to hire buses, and he said, I'm going to put them back on the buses and send them back to Mexico where they belong. That never actually happened, But he did take that stand for a short period. Then he got some pushback from some Democrats and some progressive groups, and he tried to slowly walk it back. It's been nothing but a disaster ever since.
I mean, it's interesting how, again, progressives, I say it all the time, progressives have just continued to destroy the state, both in Trenton, and you see it even locally, whether it be local races and school board races, local council races. What are you seeing throughout Middlesex County? I mean, obviously, I know you only cover Edison, but you're familiar with what's going on in Middlesex County, arguably the largest county in the state, Keith. What are you seeing about sort of the influence of progressives? I mean, I would have to make the conclusion that this nonsense about forbidding speech in the form of like holding a flag or holding the Constitution there during a public portion of the meeting. I mean, it seems to be like these council members are acquiescing to these woke fools and all these, dumbass progressives that, again, it seems like they think their heart's in the right place, but their head's up their ass, Keith.
So in Edison, I don't even think you could blame it on the progressives, because I don't even think they agree that you shouldn't be able to hold the American flag or a copy of the Constitution while you're, politely addressing the council at the meeting. I think a lot of them disagree with this policy and question why the council did it. So locally, even the progressive groups are not going along with this playbook that's being put out by the council and mayor. And we do have a few council people that opposed it, adamantly opposed it. You had Councilman Rich Brescher, Councilwoman Margot Harris, and Councilman A.J. Patil have openly been extremely critical of this ordinance when they were pushing it through.
I mean, it's downright disgraceful as far as I'm concerned. But staying in Edison here, another story I know you published, I think just today, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, with election 2024 behind us, and we'll get to some numbers about Middlesex County and Edison and how President Trump did in a moment. But I know you published it, I believe, today. And it seems like, obviously up in Essex County, some surrogates for U.S. Representative Mikey Sherrill have gotten the gubernatorial candidate into some hot water in Essex County and Maplewood. It seems like maybe gubernatorial candidate Mikey Sherrill's in some hot water in Edison. If you can explain that for us.
Yeah, so Mikey Sherrill, she's done the cable news circuit, and she's been very critical of President Trump's appointment of Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense because he's been accused of date rape. Well, the mayor of Edison was also accused of date rape, and she chose to disregard that, not comment on it, and come down here and campaign and celebrate at a recent Diwali festival. Took pictures with him. She even went so far to go on her Facebook and Twitter page, thanking him for the invite and appreciating spending time with him down here in Edison.
Now, again, for our audience that maybe isn't familiar with what's going on with the mayor, what can you share with us, Keith, that's at least, factual at this time? Obviously, maybe perhaps there's an ongoing investigation, maybe some facts are unclear. What do we know right now presently about these allegations against the mayor?
So the police report that was written by the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office has been made available. That report was only accessible from two sources. It was either released by the victim or a whistleblower from the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office. Wow. That didn't feel this case was given the proper attention. So it came from one of them two sources, but that has been made available. To date, the mayor has refused to comment or address the allegations that have been made. And like I said earlier, this is the sixth biggest town in the state of New Jersey. It's something that the residents deserve an answer on if he's going to run again for office next year.
What's the level of rapport you have with City Hall, with the council members, or with the mayor himself? I mean, obviously you're running a news site, you're publishing local news. What's the extent of any lines of communication you have right now, or lack thereof?
Some of them are very happy to communicate and reach out almost on a regular basis. They're willing to comment on all stories. Others, there's obviously, if they feel the narrative is not going in their favor, they don't want to talk. And it's really a shame, because years ago, the council they were responsive to the local news organizations. The reporters were at council meetings and they asked questions. If they didn't answer them, it looked horrible for them. Now, rather than take responsibility for their actions and justify why they're doing it, they kind of just bury their head in their sand and hope that things blow over in a week or 2 or 3 weeks.
Keith, when we think about, again, running a news site and that maybe those lines of communication not being as perhaps as amicable as they could be, has that presented any problems for you in the sense of, again, it's a business, so you're looking to, perhaps earn some money via advertising, which is like, listen, at the end of the day, it's a numbers business. It's certainly, you need advertising to be able to survive. We're seeing why sort of like establishment news sites or newspapers have been dying out. Obviously, digital media, things of that nature, podcasts like this, news sites like yours, are sort of, kind of pushing them out of the way. Have you experienced any sort of difficulties with that? I mean, has the town gone out of its way to maybe make your life difficult in any capacity?
Well, yeah, so they're not happy about it, and they do push back. For one example, my wife runs the Edison Art Society, which is a nonprofit that does art exhibits and provides resources for artists to display their art throughout town. They used to have a gallery in town hall called the Edison Art Society Gallery, and they would do bi-monthly art exhibits, and it really made town hall look nice, and the people really appreciate it. Since I started this news site, after being in town hall for over 15 years, they kicked the Edison Art Society out of town hall. And I got calls from people that are in town hall, and they said it was directly related to me running this news site, that they were kicking the nonprofit out of town hall, which is just, it's not a good thing to do. It's horrible, but yeah, starting something like this does come with some pushback.
I mean, listen, it's pettiness defined, as they say, pettiness 101. Certainly, the township of Edison is not the first municipality to do this, and they certainly won't be the last. But again, you've given so much of your life, though, Keith, again, working in law enforcement. Once again, thank you for your service within law enforcement. And now, transitioning to becoming a journalist. How has that felt? Again, you've been a very visible person in the community as a police officer, and now you're transitioning to being a journalist. What's been that evolution for you? And again, what's been the feedback? When you go food shopping, do you run into people maybe you didn't used to see all the time, and now you do, and they know you're the editor? What's sort of been the feedback when you're out in public now?
It's good. Most people like the local news, and I take the same position that I took when I was a cop. For 25 years, I said, as a police officer, you need common sense, empathy, and compassion. And it's the same way when you're doing the news. You got to use common sense. If the story makes sense and it's somebody that's an elected official or in the public life, the story deserves to be answered. The questions deserve to be answered. If it's somebody in town and you try not to hurt people with the stories that you do, and to me, at the end of the day, you just use common sense, have some empathy and compassion for the people you're writing about, and the facts speak for themselves at the end of the day.
It's interesting, though, Keith, when you mention Middlesex County, again, arguably the largest county in the state, so many municipalities. And I think that during this election cycle, what did we see? Obviously, here in New Jersey, the 45th president and now soon to be 47th president-elect, Donald Trump, did very well in New Jersey. I was the only journalist saying that, hey, I'm not going by polling. I'm talking to people who canvass, who phone bank, who knock on doors. And I said, hey, I think the former president I'm not sure if he'll win New Jersey, but it's going to be really close. It's going to be single digits. And Keith, I can't tell you how many people, first of all, owe me dinners because I'm bets on this about single digits. But also we're like, Fernando, you're out of your mind. How do you see that? I'm like, listen, we started seeing a little bit in 2021 with how unpopular Phil Murphy was, the emperor, with his draconian COVID measures, with the way he killed the state's economy, the way he killed local businesses. And again, if it wasn't for Jack Chiarelli really running with what I think was a pretty vanilla campaign, I mean, yes, he came within 3 points of beating the emperor, but you started seeing some cracks in the armor, as they say, about the way Democrats are perceived in New Jersey. And again, we had a sitting vice president who was an outright disaster, who was a word salad queen, who couldn't get out of her own way, and again, couldn't escape sort of the black cloud that she was serving under, right? Her boss, the president of the United States. And I said, I think not just because of the rally in May, obviously in Wildwood, which I attended, the rally in Madison Square Garden across the river in late October. I said, I think there's a quiet vote out there that is very anti-Democrats. Democrats lost the working class. They used to be the party of the working class, but they started subscribing to all this woke bullshit, being all about social justice causes, and it came back. The bill came due, and Donald Trump came within 5 points of winning New Jersey. Again, for the first time, a Republican could have done that since 1988, folks. A little, history professor here in the House, since George H.W. Bush in 1988. So Donald Trump came really, really close. What were some of the numbers in Edison and maybe nearby Middlesex County townships?
Yeah, so the numbers were really the tale of two elections. In 2020, President Trump lost by over 10,000 votes in Edison. In 2024, he cut that to 3,500. And that's in a town that's 60% minority. And Democrats outnumber Republicans 4-1. So for President Trump to cut that from 10,000 to 3,500 in one election cycle is really significant locally.
What did you see, though, in Edison? I mean, in terms of the way the Democrat Party was trying to, again, the GOTV effort. And I know up here in Hudson County, Keith, I can tell you, there were plenty of people that said to me, hey, listen, there are a lot of Democrats who might vote locally. They'll vote for the local representative in the House, like case in point here in Hudson County, Rob Menendez, maybe down in Middlesex County, Somerset, wherever. They might vote for their local, House candidate. But when it came time to voting for Kamala Harris, I can tell you that many people, many Democrats, lifelong Democrats said to me, yeah, you know what? I can't vote for Kamala Harris. This is a disaster. The economy's awful. We're seeing illegals everywhere. Public safety is just being disregarded. We're sending billions of dollars overseas to corrupt regimes like Ukraine. I said, this is what's going to get Donald Trump elected nationally. And I think this is what could make New Jersey start shifting more red. Did you see that more in Edison? I know you mentioned some numbers, but from talking to people around town or nearby.
So one of the big issues was from the Board of Education, State Policy 5756, which allowed the transgender policy, and our Board of Education actually voted to rescind that policy. And this is coming from a Board of Education where 8 out of the 9 members are Democrats. They voted to rescind that because the different groups in town did not support it. And that was a really big issue locally that I think really pushed the numbers to the one side.
No, listen, I'm with you. And it's interesting because I know that, listen, not every school board is elected. I know up here in Hudson County, there's only maybe a handful of ones that are, but that seems to be the norm throughout all 21 counties in New Jersey. And it was just interesting to the point you just made that even lifelong Democrats or people that lean Democrat on school boards just cannot get behind this bullshit. I mean, it's nonsense. Keith, again, you're born a man, you're a man. You're born a woman, you're born a woman. No amount of make-believe, no amount of whatever you want to do, surgeries or whatever, again, is going to convince me that you are something you are not, Keith. And I just think that this acquiescing to the alphabet mob, we see it in Trenton. Sure, the governor is very, very pro-LGBTQ, plus, minus, et cetera, but I think a lot of regular, everyday people, Keith, I think kitchen table issues about this backfired on Democrats. And I would argue not just in Middlesex County, but throughout New Jersey. Is that fair to say?
I think it is. And we've seen it locally with the, like I said, with that 5756. And it caused a lot of controversy. They eventually repealed it. I think it's going to come up again in January where they're going to redo the policy. But locally, that was a big issue. People, again, back to common sense issues. Most people, they care about the things that affect them and their family, and especially their kids on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And folks, again, if you just joined us right now, it's 6:27 here on the East Coast. If you're just joining us live, like, comment, and share tonight's episode here on the Jersey First Television Network. As my guest this evening is the editor-in-chief of the Edison Reporter. Keith Hahn joins us live right now on Real Talk with Fernando Uribe. Keith, you mentioned gubernatorial candidate was recently in Edison. They're sort of, photo opping with the mayor. And again, as we just finished one election cycle here in New Jersey, there's always an election every year, whether it's a presidential election year, a gubernatorial race, assembly races, House races, county commissioner races. Hey, listen, 2025 is literally 29 days away. And of course, we know that we'll be moving into the next sort of election cycle, and that's a race for governor, for not just the Republican Party, but for the Democrat Party. But also all 80 assembly seats are up for grabs next year. Keith, now I'm not sure exactly what districts are within Middlesex County or nearby in Edison. What's the buzz going around about some of these assembly candidates and some of the incumbents that maybe are going to have to defend this record? Again, case in point, reported today, the gas tax is going up again in New Jersey. Just as we're seeing the cost of gas going down, well, not in New Jersey, we'll be paying almost 55 cents more because of these ridiculous gas taxes that the legislature has enacted over the last few years.
So here at Edison, we're District 18. Our state senators, Pat Dignan, the assembly people are Rob Karabinchik and Sterling Stanley. And Steve Fulop, who's running for governor, he graduated J.P. Stevens in Edison, and he's planning on running candidates. So I don't know who those candidates are going to be yet, but there probably will be a contested primary on the Democratic side.
Now, how do you, I mean, again, you're a journalist. I mean, obviously, I know you're following these races as I am. How do you see the Democrat Party right now? I mean, it seems like a lot of them, you know, if you've seen interviews or you look at their social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, Facebook, it just seems a lot of Democrats in New Jersey aren't getting the message, Keith. I mean, there was a mandate just a few weeks ago. It's not like President Trump, you know, just won the Electoral College like he did in 2016 and didn't win the popular vote. No, that's not the case. He won the Electoral College decisively, and he won the popular vote decisively too. So this is a mandate. He did, you know, he just didn't fall into the office. There's a clear mandate here, and it seems like Democrats nationally and in New Jersey are still in denial about why Donald Trump got reelected. And it just seems like in this upcoming gubernatorial race, you know, we have very different Democrats. Obviously, we have Steve Sweeney, former Senate president, down in South Jersey. We have two members of the House of Representatives, Josh Gottheimer and Mikey Sherrill. We have Newark Mayor Ross Baraka. We have Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop. We have NJEA President and former Montclair Mayor Sean Spiller. I don't think I'm missing anybody right now. But it just seems like this is a race, and we'll get to the Republicans in a minute, but it just seems like Democrats can get out of their own way. Like, who's more woke? You know, again, case in point today, you know, you mentioned Steve Fulop, an Edison, you know, a native, right? It seems like Mayor Fulop is more concerned with pronouns and nonsense like this when we all know that property taxes are suffocating New Jerseyans, Keith, and public safety as well.
So I always say Edison's a microcosm of the entire state. And if you look at Edison, you look at the mayor, when he got elected in 2021, he was out stealing campaign signs with his uncle. His uncle actually got arrested and charged with it. You know, he took 4 cops just recently. This was another local story that we did. He took 4 cops with him to the DNC, to the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, on the taxpayer's dime. When one of the council people started asking questions about it, he said that the cops weren't working. They volunteered their time. They went on their own time. And then a whistleblower provided the scheduling records that showed that not only were the cops actually working, but they were paid by the township. In response to that article and the questions from the councilman, the mayor had to write a $20,000 check from his campaign account back to the township. Council people reported that to the Attorney General's office. I think the fact that he had to write the $20,000 check back was an admission of guilt of something. And that's been going on back and forth. So you have, you know, somebody, a young mayor who was given the position. He didn't win. He wasn't nominated by his party. The county chairman stepped in and gave him the position. And nobody wants to call him on any of this misconduct. And that's on top of the sexual assault allegation that's out there. You know, if that was a Republican or somebody else, they would be all over it. And I think as a party, whether it's on the Democratic side or the Republican side, you got to pick better candidates that you're willing to stand up and support.
And it's interesting you bring up the DNC. I mean, we all know that essentially it's just, yeah, you're on the floor of the United Center there in Chicago, but let's be honest. I mean, you're going to lunches, brunches, open bar mixers until like the late hours, and some delegates don't even make it to the floor the next day. So let's be honest too about what these are. Keith. I mean, I was just at the League of Municipalities a couple weeks ago in Atlantic City, and for anyone that knows about the League of Municipalities, yes, there's some great courses to go and seminars during the day, but the reason people go, Keith, is to blow off steam, to go to all these open bar mixtures like I did, network, talk to Republicans, talk to Democrats, talk to activists, lobbyists, whoever, elected officials. It's insulting to me to think that, oh, you're just going, and if you're an elected official, that, oh, somehow there isn't a security detail. Of course there is.
Yeah, so I think the one Councilman Rich Brescher, summed it up perfectly when he started asking questions about it. He said, why should the taxpayer pay for 4 cops to go on a political vacation with the mayor? And that's exactly what it was. It was a political vacation that cost the taxpayer a lot of money.
No, it certainly did. And I think, again, there's a level, I think, of myopia here politically, Keith, if I can be so bold about the optics out there for the mayor. And I've reached out to his office. I'm hoping to have him on this show and, have a conversation with him, not just about what's going on. Obviously, I mean, I've been following what you're doing with the Edison Reporter. And certainly I think, for a town like you just said, it is a microcosm of New Jersey. New Jersey is pretty much a working, blue-collar, working-class state. I mean, obviously there are some bougie areas, obviously some affluent areas. But, again, I think Edison, you said it correctly, is a representation of what the Garden State is. A regular, everyday, working-class people, moms and dads, single parents that just want to go to work, pay their bills. Unfortunately, paying bills more than they should because New Jersey is just so unaffordable. But I think that this idea that New Jersey is disconnected from sort of like the mainstream political climate, I just think isn't true. I think New Jersey is a perfect example of regular, everyday people, Keith.
Well, part of the problem is you have so many people locally that are beholden to the system. You have cops, firemen, teachers, public employees. Locally, if you speak out or go against the party, your job's threatened. So that raises concerns with a lot of people and pushes them one direction or the other. And that's gone on, I'm sure Hudson County is no different. That's gone on for years here.
And it's unfortunate because it sort of just reeks of cronyism. And it reeks really, I think, of, in some cases, maybe nepotism, right? Where you're seeing employees that maybe shouldn't be involved in municipal government, and they tend to be involved, right, when it comes to stuff like that. And, again, when we think about Middlesex County, it's such a large county. Certainly, again, the Edison Reporter is doing a great job in covering Edison. I know, as I mentioned earlier, fellow Rutgers alumnus Charlie Cradable, again, shout out to him. Great stuff that he does with New Brunswick Today. Has there been any desire, Keith, to maybe expand for you? I mean, obviously, you're just only covering Edison, but is there a desire? I mean, I know you're retired. I want to put words in your mouth, brother. But again, it seems like a very big job covering a municipality like Edison. Is there an itch maybe in 2025 to start covering more municipalities?
Yeah, so I think we have plans right now to move to 1 or 2 other municipalities in Middlesex County. We're working on the back end website now. And with the ultimate goal is we want to be the go-to news source in Middlesex County. And it's every town. There's a lack of news throughout the county, and it's a problem. It's a problem when it comes to the elected officials not being held accountable. It's a problem when it comes to spending. It's a problem when it comes to resources, school funding. A lot of it all traces back to a lack of accountability. And with no news, the elected officials think they could do whatever they want without having to answer for it.
Keith, I know you'll be a gentleman about this, but essentially, what's the Edison Reporter doing that Patch or Tap Intos aren't doing? Because again, there are news sites that, again, they rely on some advertising dollars, of course. And I know, listen, up here in Hudson County, shout out to Steve Lennox, who runs the Tap Intos in Hoboken, Jersey City, and Bayonne, and they do a great job. I mean, I think every news site has a different budget, different goal, different end game when it comes to their coverage. But essentially, why are you just a better alternative than the Taps and the Patches?
So I think their business model is a little different. It relies on certain advertisers, and it relies on information from the mayor's office. Locally here, we're relying on information from cops, firemen, teachers, people who work in town and have that information, and trying to bring them stories to light that otherwise would not see the light of day. You know, the tap in, we have a tap into Edison here, and they're good with putting out the festivals and the different things going on in town, but they're really not too quick to get involved in any of the news that might be considered controversial or critical of somebody in the administration.
Fair enough. Now it certainly sort of begs the question. Now, I think when it looks to, you know, what the Edison Reporter is obviously covering, I know you mentioned earlier on it started as like sort of local, you know, covering local sports, which, by the way, I mean, I love high school sports. You know, as a sportsman myself, I mean, this is where you see the future, right? This is where you see great kids coming out of high schools and going to college and becoming professionals, right? And, you know, again, I see a lot of high school coverage kind of going by the wayside. That's not the case with you, obviously. I know that's one of the sort of the cornerstones of what the Edison Reporter is about. But what do you think could be done better by some other local news sites when it comes to local sports? Because again, there's so much to cover and just so many reporters available to do that.
So the Star Ledger still does a pretty good job covering high school sports locally here anyway. It's just the lack of resources. I don't think people have figured out a way to monetize it and have the manpower necessary to do everything they may want to do. Thank God for technology. It's been very helpful, and it allows you to do more with your limited time than you could in the past, which is what makes all of this possible. 10 years ago, to be running a local news site like this would be virtually impossible without a staff of 5, 6, 7, 8 people.
Sure. No, listen, and that's why we're seeing news sites. And to your point about the business models have changed for certain news sites. Obviously, we know that the Star Ledger /NJ.com isn't any more profitable than what it used to be. Now, again, you know, when you have people like Tom Moran being employed there, that's killing the newspaper. Same thing with the Bergen Record. You have people like Charles Stile writing propaganda pieces. Obviously, that doesn't help when it comes to readership and circulation. So again, I think you hit it on the head. Business models matter when it comes to whether or not you want to pursue this as a venture. Let me pick your brain real quick here. I know you mentioned you were a retired police officer. You know, an issue that I think resonated with a lot of people in New Jersey, I think nationally, Keith, was this premise that, you know, one political party doesn't care about public safety. And I would argue here in New Jersey, you know, the emperor and the attorney general, you know, listen, they have armed security at all times. That's cool. Good for them. But for regular New Jerseyans, what are we seeing with disastrous policies like bail reform and cash bail? And at the same time, you know, Matt Plack and the attorney general is making it ever so difficult for law-abiding New Jerseyans to be able to secure a firearm for their home to protect themselves. Again, I'm all for police. There isn't a more Blue Lives Matter, pro-law enforcement podcast journalist in New Jersey than myself. But again, Keith, you know, listen, you can call 911. Cops can get there only in so many minutes. You know, you want to protect yourself, your home, and your family. You know, this governor and this attorney general has just made it so much more difficult. As a retired police officer, you know, how are you seeing the decline when it comes to looking at public safety in New Jersey? Or am I just exaggerating?
No, so as a retired cop, I was also a PBA president, and I'm a Silver Life member and Gold Life member of the Edison PBA. I was also a state delegate for the New Jersey State PBA. And the joke would always be that the Republicans will support you, but they don't want to pay you, where the Democrats will pay you to go along with what they want. And Governor Murphy funded the pension. Pay raises have been good. Cops in Edison are, you know, base pay for a senior patrolman under this current contracts, I believe $192,000 pensionable salary. A captain is making $275,000 pensionable. So they're making good money. So there's not a lot of incentive for them to push back locally, you know, for the guys that are still on the job.
I mean, but again, when we look at an issue like bail reform, cash bail, I mean, they've been disasters. We've seen it across the river in New York. We've seen it here in New Jersey. Do you think that's an issue maybe that, again, maybe you'll be talking to some gubernatorial candidates with the Edison Reporter. Maybe you'll be talking to some assembly candidates. Do you think that's something that's going to be on the radar in next year's election cycle here in New Jersey?
Oh, it's definitely going to be, because the revolving door is, you talk to guys that are working on the street, and they're locking the same person up time and time again. It's the same people that are committing, 65% of the crimes. And, bail reform, they're out before the paperwork's completed.
It's downright embarrassing. Let me ask you this, man. And I sort of have this theory, and maybe you'll be on board with it. It seems like you and I, very commonsensical guys here. I would venture a guess, man, that if a gubernatorial candidate, whether Democrat or Republican, just said, hey, on day one, when I'm elected and I get sworn in at 12, obviously January, whenever it is, 2029, excuse me, 2026, excuse me, and they take the oath of office, it's 12 o'clock, let's say 12:02. Do you think, Keith, that if one candidate said, hey, upon getting sworn in, I'm going to immediately issue an audit of New Jersey Transit, the Turnpike Authority, and the Parkway Authority, I'll tell you right now, I think that candidate will easily get 500,000 votes. Am I wrong?
Well, yeah. No, you're probably not wrong. And I think it's something that's going to have to be done. If you saw the recent articles that Governor Murphy came out and said, we've kind of spent too much money and we got to rein in the spending. That's something that's going to have to be done to fill that hole in the budget.
Isn't it interesting now where the governor just thinks that we print money in New Jersey and these budgets have gotten fatter than a Victoria's Secret model lately, modeling lingerie, though, Keith, that now all of a sudden the emperor wants Trenton to tighten its belt. No new hires, 5% 5% cut across departments, and a hiring freeze. What happened to Phil Murphy, the progressive?
Well, at the end of the day, somebody has to pay the bills, and there's only so much money to go around.
Yeah, right. Let's be honest. When it's somebody else's money, at some point, it's not. This isn't Tony Khan with All Elite Wrestling or that gets money from his dad, right? I mean, obviously, like at some point, you have to have a budget, and it seems like maybe Phil Murphy is kind of putting the strains to the candidates going into next year, especially on the Democrat side, where like they're going to have to maybe either not necessarily seek out the governor's endorsement, because let's be honest, that endorsement doesn't really mean much anymore right now as he's just finishing up his term. But when you think about spending, again, we have the highest property taxes in the country. Early in the year, NJ.com reported that it went up again to about $9,400 on an average. Up here in Hudson County, Keith, for example, I drive along what's called River Road in northern Hudson County. I start going to southern Bergen County, and I go past the GW Bridge. I hit towns like Alpine, Dumont, Cresskill. We're talking about $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 in property taxes. We go down a little bit south into Route 78, Summit, Cranford. My goodness, $20,000, $21,000, $22,000 for property taxes. How's it looking right now in Edison and the nearby municipalities?
Edison's probably in the $12,000 to $18,000 range. Some of the newer houses being built are $25,000 to $30,000. So you got a big range in Edison. But it's not just the property taxes; it's everyday expenses. When you pull into McDonald's with your two kids and your wife, and it's $60, people feel that. When you pull into a gas station and gas is $75, $80, $100 to fill up your car, people feel that. And I think that was what people started really pushing back on, is their everyday expenses and the things that were affecting them in their everyday lives.
Keith, you mentioned obviously building and development. Is Edison going through maybe a little bit of a crisis like the rest of the state is? There's a lot of municipalities that are just going through a lot of overdevelopment. Case in point, up here in Hudson County where I live. I mean, I live in Union City, and our mayor is also our state senator. He's done a good job in sort of keeping that, I think, kind of contained. That's not the case in nearby West New York, North Bergen, towns like Edgewater, which are, southern Bergen County. We're seeing it in parts of Morris County. I just talked to the mayor there a few months ago on this show. I'll be talking to other mayors in 2025. What are we seeing in Edison? Is there a concern that maybe lifelong residents are getting priced out because of overdevelopment and maybe like new condos or all these expensive rentals?
So they just came out with our newest COA obligation, and I think with 760 units that the town owes in their affordable housing obligation, which is going to be a tremendous burden. Here, the main problem is the schools are overcrowded. So the more units they build, especially affordable housing, the more kids that are going to be in school. Edison's a little unique as compared to other towns, where the very wealthy people here in Edison, actually want their kids to go to public school. They go to J.P. Stevens or Edison High. So that's going to be a huge problem with the overcrowding in the schools. And it's something that they've not been able to address in the past 10 or 15 years.
I mean, it's downright scary when we're seeing residents who are lifers in any municipality, though, Keith, just seeing the crunch and quite frankly, have to make that painful decision of like, you know what? I can't afford to live here in the town that I grew up in, the town I went to school in, the town that maybe I'm sending my kids to school in. It's certainly something I think that I would argue candidates for the state assembly next year, I think should definitely keep an eye out for. Folks, it's 6:49 here on the East Coast. We're about to wrap up shortly with my guest tonight, the distinguished editor of the Edison Reporter. Again, you can check out edisonreporter.com. Make sure you follow them on Instagram and Twitter. Of course, also make sure you follow them on Facebook. Keith, obviously, running this new site, it's a new enterprise for you. What's been some of the challenges when it comes to social media? Not just obviously publishing news, looking at those metrics, but what are some of the challenges maybe you have encountered when it comes to social media and linking that with the Edison Reporter and getting information out?
So one of the biggest problems is the different social media sites. They're not too friendly of you using their platform to gain traction on your own website. So there's been some blocks and some obstacles put up in that regards. But so far, it's been good. I think to this point, our actual website went up in June, and we're over 250,000 views for the year. By the end of the year, we should be over 300,000 views, which is great for the first 6 months of the website being up.
I mean, those are amazing numbers. Congratulations to you. Again, I noticed you, again, for everybody at home, let me just give you a little backstory here about how this episode came into fruition. I'm always reading the news. I read everything left, right. I listen to podcasts, left, right. I read the establishment media. I read local sites, the tap intos, the patches. Obviously, as I mentioned before, New Brunswick today. And folks, I saw the Edison Reporter on my radar. And being the broadcast journalist that I am, and I like to talk to different journalists in different capacities, I say, let me reach out to whoever the Edison Reporter is. And sure enough, folks, I mean, I couldn't have had a warmer conversation during the summer than with the editor, my guest here tonight, and talking about the good stuff that he's doing. So, folks, again, if you haven't checked out the Edison Reporter, I don't know what you're waiting for. Always visit edisonreporter.com. Great content. Obviously, it's updated now. It is updated daily for the most part, right, Keith?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, I've had a chance to talk to Keith, the former police officer, the current journalist and editor of the Edison Reporter. But let's talk to Keith Hahn, the guy, the dad, right? The granddad, right? Is that also?
No, I have two kids. My daughter's 16. My son's 13.
Okay. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure when you said.
I spend a good part of the day driving kids to school to practice, picking them up, dropping them off.
Got you. Okay, well, so let's learn more about Keith Hahn, the guy. A little bit of a lightning round here, some quick topics, and wherever comes to mind. All right. So, favorite baseball team?
Yankees.
Likewise, diehard Yankee fan. Not a great October, but as I told to a lot of people, Keith, you know what? The Yankees didn't do well this year. They didn't win the World Series. The Cowboys aren't doing well. Donald Trump won. That's all I cared about. So I'm happy. So, I'm more about country than my teams, as they say.
Yeah.
NFL, you mentioned the Giants, right?
Giants, correct.
Okay. NHL,
not really a hockey fan.
Okay, interesting.
But you got to go with the home team. So the Devils.
Okay. I mean, now, again, you're in Edison. So that's Central Jersey. Is that maybe it's close to South Jersey?
Central Jersey, right in the middle. I think East Brunswick, the town next to us, is the actual dead center of the state.
Okay.
We're exit 10 on the turnpike.
Okay. I mean, do you ever get flustered when people just say, no, there's no Central Jersey. It's just North and South? What do you say to people like that?
There's a big chunk of Central Jersey that I think people will argue over that,
Okay, fair enough.
But generally, I think it's the Parkway Bridge,
Oh, you know what?
North and South Jersey.
Great point. NBA team, if any.
What's that?
NBA.
NBA? Not really an NBA fan.
Okay.
I'm a college basketball fan.
All right. Favorite college basketball team?
Got to go with Rutgers.
Okay, listen, I'm a Rutgers alumnus.
I live 3 miles from the stadium.
Keith, I got to tell you, I am a guy who, listen, I love my sports, as you know. Obviously, we talked off the air before that. But you want to see me emotional? You want to see me like not sitting down and pacing in my living room or somewhere, wherever, if I'm at a sports bar, you catch me at a Cowboy game, you catch me at a Rutgers basketball game or a Devils game, I'm a maniac. I do not sit down. Rutgers basketball, all these grays you see here, these little dark circles, it's not just grad school at Rutgers, it's watching Rutgers sports over the years. You know what I'm saying? So I'm with you, man.
I wish they didn't lose Cliff this year. It would have been he would have been nice to have around one more year.
Yeah, I agree. I still think that Steve Pikiell's done an amazing job with Rutgers basketball. And I think that they've got some good wins already under their belt. Conference schedule starts, I believe, at the end of the month. And again, they have Seton Hall at the Jersey Mike's Arena coming up, I think, next weekend. So definitely something to keep an eye out for. Favorite cuisine, Mike?
Favorite cuisine? Oh, that's a tough one. We're going to go with Steakhouse 85 in New Brunswick.
Okay. Favorite restaurant in Edison?
Favorite restaurant in Edison? Lucas.
Okay. I'm going to have to check it out. After a long day, you've been publishing, editing, researching. How do you unwind, man? Glass of red wine, white wine, whiskey. What's your beverage of choice?
Probably just a hot green tea with lemon.
Okay. Interesting. I was not expecting that. Okay. Marvel Comics or DC Comics?
DC.
Okay. Favorite DC character?
Hard to pick one.
Okay. I'm a Batman guy. Loved Batman since I was a child. He's a human being. There's no superpowers. He's just brilliant and rich. And that's enough for me to like about Bruce Wayne for sure. Last one, favorite American president, Keith?
Ooh. Let's go with George Bush.
Dad or Junior?
Junior.
Okay. Why?
He just had that genuine personality. He seems, and due to my age, I remember him, but he was sincere and genuine.
Okay, definitely. I can't say the same for his vice president or maybe the daughter of the vice president. That's another conversation, right? Definitely. Keith, again, I want to thank you for your time, man. I'm really impressed with what you're doing with the Edison Reporter. Keep up the great work. Again, it's an example of anyone out there. If you're not pleased with the news coverage you're seeing with the establishment media in New Jersey, folks, look at the example that Keith Hahn gives us with the Edison Reporter. And again, I think it's a testament to your dedication, man. And again, congratulations on the success of the site. May you continue growing into 2025. And I really appreciate you being a fan of Real Talk with Jersey First TV. I'll give you the last word here tonight.
Fernando, thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here with you tonight. Hopefully we get to do it again sometime next year as everything evolves. And I just want to wish you and your program a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
And you know what? Isn't it great to be able to say Merry Christmas again, right? Instead of, I'm not a Happy Holidays guy. I'm a Merry Christmas, Happy Festivus. I'm showing my age now. Happy Hanukkah. I don't know. I'm about sort of like just outlining the holidays. But
so living in Edison, we have a big Indian population. My wife's made it a point. We get our Christmas lights up for Diwali. We have a Diwali party,
okay.
The end of October, whenever it is. And they stay up right through January. So it's good to have good to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Absolutely. Listen, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you and your family, Keith. Again, keep up the great work. And listen, we'll be talking regularly in 2025. I want to pick your brain. Well, obviously not just the assembly races, but certainly what's going on in Edison. Seems like the stories you've been covering, those aren't going away. And I think they're going to stay on the radar for the foreseeable future. So again, I want to thank you for your time. God bless you, brother. Stay safe out there. And once again, folks, check out edisonreporter.com. Make sure you follow them on Facebook. Of course, also follow them on Instagram and Twitter. And certainly check out all the great stuff that they're doing every single day. Keith, God bless you, man. We'll talk to you again soon here.
Take care, Fernando. Thank you.
Television Network. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Folks, good stuff there with Keith Hahn, again, the editor of the Edison Reporter. If you haven't checked it out, I don't know what you're waiting for. It's great stuff there going on there in Middlesex County. Obviously, he's a guy that, without a doubt, is doing great coverage about what's going on in arguably Middlesex County's largest municipality. And I'll tell you, folks, from what I can tell, Edison Reporter is not going away anytime soon. So cheers to you, brother, and the Edison Reporter. Folks, again, if you just joined us right now, it is 7 o'clock exactly right on the dot here on the East Coast. And you know what? Let's get right to it here. You know what time it is. It's time for final thoughts. Yes, folks, and you know what? I've had a wonderful fall. I had a wonderful November. Checking out all the Trump derangement syndrome throughout the state of New Jersey, not just in media, but of course in activism, in academia, right? Advocacy. And there's been no shortage, folks, of Trump derangement syndrome and subscribing to woke nonsense or being a social justice clown or being, just an unbearable feminist and insufferable cat lady or climate hysterics or members of the alphabet mob that somehow, hey, if you don't acquiesce to what they believe in, they might want to cancel you. Newsflash, you're not canceling me. So good luck with that. But folks, again, throughout the month of November, we saw a lot of, and of course, not just the month of November, but the entire election cycle. We saw a lot of just clueless people on our newsfeed in different capacities, right? Whether they work in education, academia, the establishment media in New Jersey, advocacy, whatever you want to call it. These are the people that supposedly knew better than you, right? And there's no shortage of these useless know-it-alls in any of the fields I just mentioned. Again, as I mentioned, Antoinette Miles, Tom Moran, good riddance to Tom Moran as he'll be unemployed soon, thank the Lord. Of course, Sleepy Al, Alan Steinberg, along with useless people like Bob Medina, the Latino Action Network, Micah Rasmussen, who just become one of the more insufferable leftists on Twitter, folks. If you haven't checked out the Rebevik Institute of Politics, down at Rider University, folks, if you ever need, a cure for insomnia, just Google or go on YouTube and check out Micah Rasmussen talking. I mean, if his awful tasting clothes don't put you to sleep, his rhetoric will. But of course, folks, there's plenty of other people. Sarah Clanini with, obviously Make the Road New Jersey. You have other insufferable activists and operatives, whether it's Maria Rodriguez-Gregg, Laura Bustamante, Amy Torres. You have, obviously Mr. Photogenic himself, Charles Style, Chucky with the Bergen Record. Of course, Maxi Pizarro with Insider NJ, useless cat ladies like Hetty Rosenstein, along with, obviously, as you can see there, other useless women like Jay Lassiter, Patty Campos Medina, Bob Hennelly, okay, Ron Zellinger, Miss Photogenic herself, Lauren Albrecht, obviously, right? Valerie, Veneri Huddle. Again, folks, these are the type of people that throughout the month of November and leading up to it, obviously all summer, were trying to convince you that they just knew more than you did. And thankfully, common sense prevailed on November the 5th, and obviously common sense returns on January the 20th. But when we think about common sense, folks, I hate to tell you, but when it comes to common sense, there's none of that in the city of Hoboken, led by its useless mayor, Ravi Bala. And of course, we have his enablers, the Lollipop Guild there in Hoboken. Of course, a Joe Quintero, who is living proof that anybody can get a law degree, clearly. You have Emily Jabor, the prom queen, of course, folks. We have charisma vacuums like Jim Doyle and Phil Cohen, who kiss the ass of Ravi Bala at every turn. And of course, folks, what have we learned about Ravi Bala? We talked about it last week. I think it's important to sort of talk about it again. This is a guy, as the mayor of Hoboken, who cares more about pronouns and Palestine than he does about real world issues like public safety and property taxes. What have we seen in the city of Hoboken, folks? We're seeing the city of Hoboken go to absolute shit under the leadership or lack thereof of Ravi Bala. Of course, we've seen, his failed attempt at running in a primary in the 8th Congressional District to replace Rob Menendez. And thankfully, Rob Menendez, who, by the way, folks, again, I talk to Rob often, and he and I have a plethora of disagreements on policy. But one thing is consistent about my support of Rob Menendez is that he rolls up his sleeve and he gets to work. and he goes to work for the 8th Congressional District. He just does it. That's it. Now, what's interesting about Ravi Bala is he tried to convince you by spending millions of dollars that somehow he was competent enough to represent the 8th Congressional District in the House of Representatives. Okay? Never mind the fact that, again, Ravi Bala would rather waste your taxpayer dollars in Hoboken with ridiculous stuff like drag queen storytelling. Folks, this isn't at a private bookstore. This is at the Hoboken Public Library using your tax dollars. So when parents complain or concerned citizens complain that the mayor is coddling the alphabet mob, well, shame on him. Shame on him coming out and coddling mentally ill people, because that's what trans people are, folks. I hate to break it to you. See, I just said the quiet part out loud. Trans people are mentally ill. You're born a man or you're born a woman. Okay? No amount of makeup, surgery, or your desire to play make-believe is going to convince anyone otherwise. But again, Ravi Bala, the Lollipop Guild in Hoboken, and all the local organizations like Hudson Pride, Garner State Equality, or whoever else want to make you think otherwise and think that, you know what, during Pride Month, that this is a good use of taxpayer dollars. And what have we learned about the priorities of Ravi Bala and City Hall in Hoboken? I'll say it again. He seems more concerned with pronouns in Palestine, which I don't care about either, okay, than real world issues like property taxes and how they continue to go up, how the cost of living in Hoboken continues to go up, and now public safety. Folks, what are we seeing in Hoboken? We are seeing residents getting assaulted in broad daylight. And of course, because of disastrous bail reform laws in New Jersey and cash bail, we're having dangerous offenders back on the street. Do you think Ravi Bala cares about that? Do you think Ravi Bala and Kim Ferrante, the chief of police, when they have a public safety meeting, you think that, folks, these are serious issues and these are serious problems and we need serious people to solve them. Ravi Bala isn't that. And neither is the rest of the people here on this picture. These aren't serious people. They don't care. They're more concerned with, whether or not they can get a free drink at one of John Allen's bars that he owns in Hoboken. And that's a fact, folks. That's not me being bombastic or hyperbolic. That's telling you the truth about what a disaster Hoboken is. Okay? Ravi Bala is so concerned about spending or the way that he governs. You know what, Ravi? Let me just say this to you. Every June during Pride Month, when you and the Lollipop Guild waste thousands of dollars, because I'm sure that's what it is, to repaint all the crosswalks in downtown Hoboken, because, you have to support the alphabet mob at all costs. Because if you don't, you're not progressive enough. Okay? With all that money you're wasting on rainbow paints and colors, how about hire some more cops? How about have more foot patrols? So residents, when they're walking their dog or walking with a stroller with their newborn baby, can feel safe in Church Square Park or on Washington Street or some of the back streets, Bloomfield Street, Garden, Willow. Okay? How about instead of spending money on this woke bullshit, which you love, by the way, it seems like everybody in this picture blows a load in their pants about woke nonsense. Okay? Not that I ever want to visualize any of these idiots blowing a load. I mean, that's just awful. But the fact is that Ravi Bala would rather virtue signal and preach to you about, oh my God, we have to be so progressive. Ravi, again, hire more cops. Stop wasting money on woke bullshit, like going to Home Depot and buying paint so you can paint all the crosswalks in downtown Hoboken with rainbow colors because you have to coddle the alphabet mob. I don't care about coddling them. I don't care about coddling sympathizers for Palestine. I don't. You know what I care about? I care about my fellow friends in Hoboken who live there, or myself, when I visit Hoboken, that I can feel safe. Then I don't have to worry about my car being broken into. Then I don't have to worry about, hey, guess what? If I'm out walking on Washington, where it's brightly lit, and I'm walking some of the side streets, then I'm not going to get mugged or assaulted by a mentally ill offender who, by the way, again, if they get arrested, they'll be back on the street after shuffling some paperwork. But the latest display of stupidity by Ravi Bala is, again, his appearance this weekend on MSNBC. Now, again, folks, short of like the 13 people who watch MSNBC, which include these fools, and of course, Ravi's family, who's really watching them this weekend? Now, of course, obviously, Jason Johnson, one of the, folks, I'm ashamed to even call him a fellow academic because he is one. But folks, this is exactly what's wrong with academia. This reminds you of like people that never had a real job in their life and just were in school their whole lives. And they end up becoming people like Jason Johnson and many other academics that I know. Okay. Let's go to this cut right here. Ravi Bala appearing on MSNBC this weekend with, folks, some of the most insufferable virtue signaling that you'll ever hear. Because now, again, thankfully, the 47th president coming up, the president-elect, will want to enforce the border. We'll want to make sure that illegals aren't running wild in our country and our state. Never mind the fact that New Jersey is a sanctuary state, thanks to Phil Murphy. But now we have mayors who want to virtue signal and cater to the progressive electorate or base. Because when he took office in 2018, one of his first acts was to make Hoboken a welcoming city because he's such a proud progressive. Yeah, how'd that work out for you, Ravi, as Hoboken continues to go to shit under your watch? Check out this ridiculous exchange on MSNBC.
I want to turn the spotlight on Democratic mayors nationwide. Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, threatening Denver's mayor with jail time after he voiced resistance to deportation plans. Now, Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala is gearing up to take on Homan for a second time. He made headlines in 2018 for tweeting, quote, "Bring it on," a response to similar threats. Bala designating Hoboken a sanctuary city at the time, his first official act. Joining me now is Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, for joining us this evening. I'm going to start with this.
By the way, folks, again, I think for everybody at home, I think you can appreciate this, and especially for everyone who understands Spanish. Tú nunca viste una cara de come mierda like Ravi Bala? I mean, folks, if you have to sort of visualize someone con una cara de come mierda, folks, it's Ravi Bala. I mean, it's not even debatable. And I know there's some other people in media and elected officials que tienen una cara de come mierda, pero este sí se lleva la corona, como se dice, como el rey de la cara de come mierda. Let's continue.
I appreciate your bravery. I appreciate your boldness. 2018 is not 2024. You have an incoming administration that says they will literally use or attempt to use the military to forcefully deport people. As a mayor, what would you be able to do if the Trump administration says we're going to send armed troops into Hoboken and pull people out of sanctuary cities, pull people out of buildings based on whatever list that we have?
And by the way, before we even get to that answer, again, and this is what I hate about MSNBC and all these partisan hacks that work there. No one's saying about going into factories. Folks, if there is a warrant to detain you, if you're here illegally, okay, that is what Tom Homan, the upcoming border czar, who's actually going to be doing something, unlike the current border czar, the sitting vice president, Kamala Harris. That's the point. If you're here illegally and there is a detainer to, again, to extradite you out of here, to deport you, that is following federal law. Now, again, that's obviously a little bit too difficult for a fellow academic like Jason Johnson. And of course, let's check out this legal scholar, Ravi Bala, with his virtue signaling answer.
Well, thankfully, we have something called the U.S. Constitution and the Constitution of the state of New Jersey that protects our rights. In 2018, the AG Graywall passed an immigration directive that said that in the state of New Jersey, local law enforcement is supposed to be for local law enforcement and will not cooperate with federal authorities in the enforcement of immigration policies. We codified that here in Hoboken through an executive order to make sure that we expend our local tax dollars and our local resources to prioritize local issues. So if they come in, we're not afraid of the authoritarianism drumbeat of the Trump administration. We've seen that movie before. We're ready for it. We're really focused on making Hoboken a safe place from a public safety standpoint. We have a deficit in law officers. We have issues with public safety, with homelessness. We're focused on local priorities. We want our local tax dollars to be expended on local priorities, and that's what we'll do here in Hoboken.
Folks, again, before I even get to that one, okay, this is what makes Ravi Bala disingenuous. You want to take local tax dollars to affect local issues? Ravi, you're not doing that. You're wasting time on bullshit like pronouns and Palestine. So again, folks, I mean, lying comes easy to Ravi Bala when he says that. Ravi has no desire to take your tax dollars in Hoboken and expend them on things that matter to regular Hoboken residents, because he doesn't do that. There's no track record of that. Again, he would rather waste taxpayer dollars on, painting rainbows on crosswalks during Pride Month than hiring more police officers. He would rather stand up there with the chief of police, okay, who's about as useless as Chief Quimby on The Simpsons. Let's be honest about what Ken Ferrante is. Sorry, Ken, I had to tell you that. But you're about as useless as Chief Quimby on The Simpsons. And that's pretty severe, because Chief Quimby is about as useless as they come as a cartoonish type character of what a chief of police is. But Ravi Bala's lying to you. Again, folks, this is a guy who would rather waste money on pronouns and coddling the alphabet mob and a Palestinian flag raising, which no one cares about, folks. Okay? Again, when we think about what's been happening on our college campuses since October 7th of last year, what have we been doing? What are progressives and all the woke fools doing? They're coddling jihadists on our college campuses and all these activists that are all about Gaza and Palestine. No one cares. I don't care. I'll say it out loud. I'll say it out again. I don't care about pronouns in Palestine. I care about real world issues. I care about public safety and making sure that residents in Hoboken are safe. I care about property taxes and the cost of spending and what's going on to make life easier for Hoboken residents. Folks, this guy doesn't care. He'd rather virtue signal. And again, Jason Johnson's happy to oblige. Let's continue.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for pointing that out also, that you have sort of a legal backing for being able to resist this. I keep seeing terrible images from that movie about 15 years ago, The Siege, where they were literally just taking people and putting them in camps in the city.
Which, by the way, folks, if you ever watched The Siege, great movie with Denzel Washington, Annette Bening, and Bruce Willis. Again, the purpose of that movie, the purpose of the plot was there was a terror cell in Brooklyn blowing up school buses and blowing up federal buildings. And guess what happened? Under constitutional law, which is funny that Ravi wants to talk about the Constitution. This is the guy who probably slept through constitutional law. Let's be honest. Okay. When in that movie, all the president did was evoke the War Powers Act, which any president, Republican or Democrat, can do if they feel the need to enact martial law. Again, folks, context is important. Watch that movie. So for this idiot to reference it as like some point of like equivalency is laughable. But again, folks, that's why he works at MSNBC.
My next question for you is the threat. There's a stick and a carrot, right? You know, if you obey in advance, then maybe the Trump administration would just come and yank people out of sanctuary cities. But they're also threatening to take federal funding. What do you think is a city's response to that threat? I mean, would you just be tied up in court saying, hey, the federal funds that you say that you're going to take away aren't connected to sanctuary cities? How would you fight the battle of the federal government pulling money away?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of machismo and testosterone-driven policies by the federal government. This fear-mongering about.
Well, first of all, let's be very fair. I mean, if there's anyone that doesn't know anything about testosterone or masculinity, folks, it's Ravi Bala. Let's be honest, the most beta male elected official that I can name in New Jersey, and that's saying a lot. There's a lot of beta males who are in elected office. So for anyone to be talking about testosterone, the least testosterone exhibiting person is Ravi Bala. And we can see that with his policies and what he stands for. But let's continue.
Yanking people and cities like Hoboken and other cities across America harboring illegal immigrants, like we're scuttling them away in tents or closets. It's just not true. Mayors are on the ground. We fight and we have a pulse of a city. Hoboken is a fair and welcoming city. And if those threats of federal funding are levied against us, they lost in the last administration. We challenged those policies. They lost because our Constitution, New Jersey, protects us. There's a bill pending in the New Jersey State Legislature, the Immigrant Trust Act, which I urge the legislature to pass quickly. And which by the way, which is why you're running for state assembly. I mean, if there's nothing more self-serving
than that. It's to want to run for state assembly so you can influence legislation just like that. So can we stop the bullshit, Ravi? Can we stop it, please? Okay, can you be transparent for once? That's the only reason you're running for state assembly. It's just have influence over legislation like that. Not because you care about public service. If you cared about public service, you do a better job of it in Hoboken. Let's continue.
That is a codified policy which will give us protections if these threats of federal funding are actually attempted by the federal government.
And Mr. Mayor, one last question, and I so appreciate, again, I cannot express enough how much I appreciate your bravery in the face of this authoritarianism. Have you had
What bravery? Folks, this is the least masculine person I can imagine in elected office. Really? I mean, again, Jason Johnson's has pretty much convoluted thought process, again, which is why he's employed at MSNBC. Anybody who's really intellectually honest doesn't work there. But again, let's continue.
Opportunity, or have you reached out to other mayors? Are mayors, the National Alliance of Mayors, are you getting together and sort of swapping policies so that other cities that have sanctuary cities can learn how to protect themselves? Because I think that what you're laying out here might have to be a roadmap for other places around the country.
Absolutely.
Yes, because we want cities throughout the rest of the country to turn into shitholes like Hoboken. Yes, absolutely, Jason. Great job there. Yeah, great job, Jason. Yes, yeah. Let's make Hoboken the model for other cities to turn into absolute shit, which is what Hoboken's done under this guy's leadership. Yeah, good call, Jason. Yeah, good one there. Jesus Christ. How this guy has a graduate degree, it's kind of mind-boggling.
Absolutely. Mayors across America are on the front lines of defending the rights of ordinary citizens in our cities. So we always work together. We always trade ideas. We always talk about policies, develop best practices. And that time could not be more critical than right now when we are again on the front lines. I will emphasize once again that we are focused here in Hoboken on the priorities of the residents of Hoboken. And those are very bread and.
That's just not true. That's bullshit. We know that's not true. You're not concerned with the priorities of the residents of Hoboken. Because if you were, you'd hire more police officers. You would stop with the woke bullshit. You would stop coddling the alphabet mob. You would stop trying to coddle illegals, Robbie. So please stop insulting my intelligence, which is quite vast, and the intelligence of everybody watching tonight. You don't care about the priorities of Hoboken residents. I get it. Lying comes easy to you, but my God, stop doing it. I mean, it's folks, when you deal with compulsive liars, it almost comes like you live in a bubble. You don't even know you're lying anymore. And that's where Ravi Bala is. Let's continue.
Butter issues. And those are where our tax dollars, our budget really needs to be focused on. If the federal government wants to spend its money on fear mongering with immigrants, and demonizing immigrants, let them spend their budget on that. But they're not going to spend our budget in Hoboken and other cities on these types of tactics. I can tell you that, and I can bet you many mayors across the city would say the same thing.
I would love to be on that mayoral group chat. Mayor Ravi Bala of Hoboken, New Jersey, thank you so much for joining us tonight on The Beat.
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
My God, folks. I mean, you want to talk about two useless people like collaborating on a network again. And, congrats to MSNBC and all 13 people that watched that segment, of course, like the other shows on MSNBC. But, folks, again, here's a reminder. I can't say this enough. How blatantly Ravi Bala lies to you. And that's what makes it disgraceful. Again, a city that I love going to, again, the birthplace of Frank Sinatra, the birthplace of baseball, has become now the residency for garbage. That's what Hoboken's become, folks, under the leadership of these idiots. And to think that Ravi Bala wants to run for state assembly next year, my God, as if it isn't bad enough he's in Hoboken destroying the city. Now he wants to go to Trenton. Listen, New Jersey's going to shit anyway. There's plenty of left-wingers and progressives in the state legislature that are contributing to the decline in New Jersey. Do we really need one more, folks? Do we need one more woke fool in Trenton? Yeah, let's think twice before voting for Ravi Bala next year in the primary in the 32nd legislative district. Let's think long and hard about that. But again, folks, I can't say enough that when it comes to real-world issues and things that we talk about at the kitchen table or in our living rooms, yeah, folks, unfortunately, Ravi Bala, Joe Quintero, Emily Jabor, Jim Doyle and Phil Cohen, they're not in the least interested in that. They'd rather pander to you. And again, when it comes to pronouns in Palestine, they're all about that. When it comes to public safety and property taxes, yeah, that's last on the list in the city of Hoboken. Again, folks, when you look at useless people in a fight, if you ever have to envision what useless people look like, yeah, it's right there in Hoboken. It just really is. And speaking of useless, let's talk about Uncle Dave. Yes, folks, from one group of useless people, let's talk about useless people in journalism and in media, and that's Uncle Dave, David Cruz. Now, again, folks, if you had a chance to watch over the weekend or at least look at the social media, you saw that Uncle Dave decided to tweet out, and again, let me just put this in perspective here so you can read it. I'm not sure if you can read it there. You can probably screenshot it, and you can obviously, look there. But he decided to retweet a rant from Maria Hinojosa, another insufferable feminist and, woke warrior, talking about pardons, right? So, of course, David Cruz, who needs Google Translate, because let's be honest, he doesn't speak a lick of Spanish or can't write it either, starts to say, yes, pardon the undocumented. Now that is an interesting thought. I mean, there are so many leaders out there saying the act of arriving sin papeles is a crime. Why not? Of course, he decides to plug Maria Hinojosa's rant there on Twitter. Well, David, again, and this is what's really interesting. And I know, again, you're like 79, maybe 80 years old. I know you took U.S. history a long time ago. You took it down in whatever, PS 37 in Jersey City some 70 years ago, and I get it. It's not fresh in your recollection. I get all that. But there's a reason why sovereignty matters, David. Okay? There's a reason why enforcing borders matters, David. Now, I get it. You leave your house to go to the grocery store, and God knows that's all you go for is for food. And, of course, you ride your bike occasionally, whatever. But, David, what happens is, if you leave your house outside of Jersey City, not just to go to Newark, I think you go to you went to the League of Municipalities. Yes, we all know that Uncle Dave, who works 6 months out of the year, has an occasional sort of boost of energy to actually do work. But, David, for the rest of us like myself, who work like real jobs that work 60 hours a week, unlike you that work 60 hours in a month, if that, okay? But I visit New York City. I visit communities around New Jersey. And what have we been seeing with the presence of illegals? Not undocumented people, folks. Folks, again, let's stop with the semantics and the pandering. If you're here illegally, if you are here breaking federal law, you are here illegal. You are an illegal immigrant. You're an illegal, period. This idea that you and Maria Hinojosa want to go on this sort of sanctimonious, and that's a big word for you, David. I know, sanctimonious, that's a big word, so tranquilízate. Okay, I don't want your brain to overheat. Okay, but what David Cruz represents, again, folks, is that he's a microcosm of, as I mentioned before, all these woke fools, all these social justice clowns that don't care about sovereignty. They don't care about the harm that criminal illegals have done right now to this country and nearby. Folks, have we seen the crime rate in New York City? Have we seen gangs circulating around New York City and the boroughs because of a disastrous border policy by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? One that David Cruz would never criticize because, again, David Cruz would rather virtue signal or, divide his time between virtue signaling or seeing what's on the menu at the food court at the Gateway Center. When it comes to real world issues, David Cruz isn't in the least remotely interested in representing you folks. He just isn't. He'd rather virtue signal and retweet insufferable feminists and cat ladies like Maria Hinojosa when it comes to pardons. And again, folks, I know that pardons are sort of the big deal here in this news cycle right now. As we all know, Joe Biden decided to pardon his son Hunter. And I get it, folks. He's a dad. I don't know a single dad that wouldn't do what he did for his son. Now, what I think is interesting is, pardoning him and putting a specific time frame from January 2014 to the present, which is kind of makes you believe that, we all know that Hunter was involved in some shady criminal activity going back to 2014 when, coincidentally, he was named to the board of Burisma, an energy company, which, by the way, he has zero experience in energy, but was named on there. And, of course, why was he? Oh, he's the son at the time in 2014 of the sitting vice president, Joe Biden. So one thing is to pardon your son about the recent gun charge, which, by the way, folks, back in the 90s when Joe Biden was all about enacting a crime bill, the very charge that Joe Biden is pardoning Hunter Biden for, he was more than happy to let black people rot in jail for the very same charge. That was part of that crime bill back in the 90s. Just in case you forgot, you can Google it. And trust me, I'm right on that too. Now, if you want to pardon him for tax evasion, the gun charge, and whatever else from the conviction from this summer, fine, I get it. A dad's supporting his son. I don't have a qualm with that. I think any dad would do that. But the idea to now put a timeline and say, oh, from January 2014 to the present, oh, I'm pardoning him for anything there. Folks, if that doesn't raise a red flag, I don't know. But again, that will require Uncle Dave to do some critical thinking. And unfortunately, tú sabes que Uncle Dave, con el cerebro, eso no le sirve. So ya, como ya Dave ya tiene 80 años, ya el cerebro ya no funciona. So of course, when it comes to critical thinking, yes, folks, that's a stretch for Uncle Dave to think critically. David, have we seen what illegals are doing to our schools? Overcrowding them. Teachers are suffocated with 30, 40, even in some school districts, up to 50 kids. Why? Because we're seeing illegals come across the border, having kids here in some cases, and then overcrowding our schools. Have we seen illegals use up social services? Have we seen illegals go to emergency rooms? And again, use up those services that are, again, supposed to be for Americans, for citizens. Okay? Or we're seeing criminality like we're seeing across. And again, this is what's interesting about you retweeting someone like Maria Hinojosa. Again, she's as myopic and as clueless as you are. Illegals are committing crimes here. In some cases, deadly ones. Because we talk about Laken Riley in Georgia, David. Because about Kate Stanley in San Francisco, where criminal illegals, in some cases, are engaged in homicides and other criminal activities. Really, David? David, I get you live in your bubble and you live in your little echo chamber. But it'd be nice to sort of walk outside of it and live in the real world. But this is the problem again with David Cruz. David Cruz rather virtue signal than really tackle the issue of the harm that the illegals are doing. See, on this show, again, folks, why I take so much pride on this program is just I'm never going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you the facts as uncomfortable as they may be. I'm going to tell you the truth as unsettling as it might be for you. I'm not going to lie to you like Uncle Dave does and other propagandists who masquerade. Let's be honest. They're masquerading as journalists. All right. Halloween is come and gone, but their masquerade still continues. Whether it's Uncle Dave, Max Pizarro, Charles Stile, Alan Steinberg, Jay Lassiter, Bob Hennelly, Ron Zelllinger, Josh Rosario, you name it. I'm not going to lie to you on this show because I'm looking out for you. I'm not looking out for corporate self-interest, folks. That's not what we do on this show. That's not what we do on the Jersey First Television Network. When it comes to misrepresenting the facts and virtue signaling and pandering to all the woke bullshit, very much like Ravi Bala, yeah, folks, Uncle Dave, he's just as useless too. And what's interesting is for Dave to now, again, since it is Cyber Monday, we just went through Black Friday, but now for Cyber Monday. This is what's really interesting. I just got to read you this as well. You can screenshot it as well here. This one's really, really funny. So as you can see behind me there, obviously, let's go to NJ Spotlight News. Let me just look at my notes here. Okay. This is glorious. So obviously NJ Spotlight News, Uncle Dave's employer says, our year-end campaign is in full swing. Every gift is matched, doubling your impact. Help us reach $25,000 to keep delivering trusted news. Donate now. As you can see there, the public deserves access to quality journalism. Folks, here's the thing. For David Cruz, David, that's not you. When it comes to quality journalism, I don't know who you're trying to kid, bro. But I'm not buying that. Now, I might get it. Listen, NJ Spotlight News has its uses. Okay? Listen, if I ever enjoy looking at a bunch of MILFs to deliver the news, NJ Spotlight News delivers that. Joanna Gagas, Brianna Vanozzi, Raven Santana. I mean, folks, these are some nice looking honeys. I got no problem watching NJ Spotlight News when they're on TV. Believe me, they make my viewing experience a hell of a lot better. So I'll give you that. Okay, you can parade out a bunch of milfs out there and read the news on a teleprompter. That's cool, David. But when it comes to quality journalism, who are we kidding? It's not coming from you. You'd rather virtue signal, throw more softballs than a local charity game than actually do real journalism, than ask real questions of guests. And I get it. You've cut your teeth in the business. You've been in journalism longer than I've been alive. And I get it. At this point, you're just getting lazy. Yo entiendo, tú eres vago. Nadie te va a criticar, ¿ok? Tú has hecho el trabajo, tú has trabajado mucho, ya nadie te va a criticar if you want to take it easy. But again, folks, don't lie to us, David, and tell us you're actually doing journalism. And don't lie to us that it's somehow NJ Spotlight News, the way they cater to the Democrat Party, the way they cater to illegals, the way they cater to the alphabet mob, that somehow the public deserves access to quality journalism. Yes, folks, they do. The public does deserve access to quality journalism. But David, that isn't you. And in many instances, that is not NJ Spotlight News. Let's get with it, folks. It's Cyber Monday. You have some disposable income. You want to buy something. You want to donate to something. Donate to something worthwhile. I can tell you right now, something that isn't worthwhile is NJ Spotlight News. Folks, spend your money elsewhere. It'll be much more productive. And those are my final thoughts. Folks, speaking about quality journalism, again, obviously, when we think about quality journalism, I don't think about David Cruz, and why would you? When he blatantly lies to you as often as he does. Okay? He can tell you what's being served at the food court at the Gateway Center. Okay? He can talk about his pathetic New York Mets. But folks, quality journalism, it's not David Cruz. Sorry. Sorry, that's not David Cruz. Folks, speaking about quality journalism, yes, folks, wouldn't you know it? The month of November once again brings us wonderful traffic here on the show. Folks, 72,000 views, all organic. Okay, nothing boosted. I'm not vaccinated. I don't believe in boosting anything, much less my media brand, because guess what? It doesn't need boosting. It's just great. When I think about all the great traffic, folks, again, I want to thank all of you at home that make it possible for Real Talk with Fernando Uribe to exist and to continue to bring you, again, exceptional analysis and commentary about everything going on in New Jersey media. So once again, I want to thank all of you. Again, folks, listen, I'm not the most humble person, but I'm deeply humbled by your support throughout 2024. And of course, we'll continue doing it well into 2025. And again, I'm deeply humbled. And as you all know, I'm not the most humble guy walking, folks, but I'm deeply humbled when I see these numbers. Okay, enough of humble Fernando. Let's get to real Fernando. Yes, folks. Yes, folks. Once again, 72,000 views, and folks, I just gotta tell you, the other day, actually, I might have to go to my doctor, and I have to go for my yearly physical, and I'm kind of developing this pain here in my back or in my shoulders. It's just, folks, when you carry the burden that I do of greatness, folks, it's exhausting. I might want to get checked out when I go to the doctor here. I'm like, Doc, I'm just feeling this pain. And like, doctor might ask me, Fernando, what are you feeling? Just the burden I feel on these shoulders, having to carry this level of greatness in journalism every single week. But folks, in all seriousness, thank you so much once again for supporting Real Talk, as the traffic has been great in 2024, and no doubt it'll continue in 2025. And you know what? Let's listen to it again. Yes, folks. Once again, thank you for all the great traffic in November of 2024. And that's our show for this week. Once again, I want to thank Keith Hahn, the distinguished editor of the Edison Reporter, for his appearance tonight. Great conversation about everything going on in the great city of Edison, and of course, everything going on in Middlesex County and in New Jersey politics. Folks, if you missed any time of tonight's show, again, just after we go off the air, just share it. Of course, if you haven't checked it out on our social media, make sure you like Real Talk with Fernando Uribe, of course, and also make sure you like my page as well. Make sure you follow, obviously, Jersey First TV on Instagram and Twitter. Make sure also, folks, you check us out on YouTube. Like, comment, and share. Of course, folks, I can't say enough about the great job we're doing with Spotify and SoundCloud. Wherever you get your podcasts there, download Jersey First and take it with you, whether you're doing food shopping, Christmas shopping, wherever it is you're doing, folks. Even if you're walking your dog in these cold winter days, take the Jersey First Television Network with you anywhere at any time. And I can't say enough what a privilege it is to be on the dream team of Garden State Media. That's right, folks. It is the Jersey First Television Network. Of course, brand new episodes of The Nader Narrative premiere every Thursday. And of course, brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap with AJ Melillo and Stephen Rombolo premiere every Thursday as well. Again, folks, great colleagues I have at Jersey First TV. And of course, brand new episodes of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe premiere every Monday night live here on Jersey First TV. Folks, always remember, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's Real Talk right here on the Jersey First Television Network. I am New Jersey's premier and 10-time award-winning journalist. Top Latino was voted on by the Latino Spirit Online magazine, of course, along with the United States Latino Affairs Initiative. With that, I'll continue to be the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State Media, because my level of honesty, folks, is truly necessary in this era of journalistic deception. That's right, folks. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Once again, the most handsome face that runs the place. Again, the people's choice and the people's voice. Folks, I can't say it enough. The generational talent comes to you live every Monday night, and I appreciate you guys tuning in here. Again, like, comment, and share. It takes 2 seconds to show your support for Real Talk via the Jersey First Television Network. Folks, again, enjoy the rest of your weeks. Please stay warm. Again, look after your pets, elderly neighbors. Make sure your kids are all bundled up. And we'll see you next week here, folks, on Monday night, December the 9th, as I will have Rutgers University President John Pavlik here from the School of Communication and Media for a very interesting conversation and examination of today's media landscape. So again, folks, next Monday night at 6:05 Eastern Time, you'll check out Professor John Pavlik from Rutgers University here on the Jersey First Television Network. Folks, again, enjoy yourselves. Stay warm. Please party responsibly again. Thanks for stopping by. And always remember, stay classy, everyone.